This episode is brought to you by the best-selling book, Rise of the Film Entrepreneur, How to Turn Your Independent Film into a Money-Making Business. Learn more at filmbizbook.com. I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion, Diane Bell. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you. It always is.
It is. You know, it's been at least 150 episodes since last time you were on.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, and it's been a while since you've been on. So we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. You've been busy since last we spoke. Yeah. And for those who did not listen to the first episode, we're just going to kind of go over a few things that we might have talked about in the first episode. But I just think you have such an interesting life and such an interesting journey as a filmmaker that I think it's worth going back into it. So first and foremost, how did you get into the film business and why did you want to become a filmmaker?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so how did I get into the film business? I got in through screenwriting. Okay. And I didn't have like a simple or obvious path into it. Like I was a total cinephile from the time that I went to university, I would say, you know, when I discovered art house cinema. Because until then, cinema seemed like lesser to me than books. But then when I discovered art house cinema, I was like, oh my God, you know, this is it. So I was a total cinephile, but it never crossed my mind that I could work in the business. Right. You know, it never crossed my mind that I could be a director or I could be a screenwriter. It really did. That would seem so far-fetched to me, you know? And so, you know, I studied philosophy. I became a yoga teacher. I went to India. I moved to Barcelona, Spain. I was from Scotland, you know, and opened a yoga school. So I was doing all these things, but I was always really into writing. And finally I had an idea for a movie. It came to me kind of out of the blue, which was about, and I think I might have told you about this before, about a Mexican voiceover actor who dubs Mickey Rourke's movies into Spanish. Yes. So I knew, like, this was not an idea for a novel or for a short story or a story. This was an idea for a movie. And I just went, okay, I'm going to write this movie. And that's what I did. So I wrote the script, you know, and like people said, how long did it take you to write? And I'm like, well, it took me like 8 weeks over 3 years, you know, like it was a long drawn out process because of course I had that thing where I would write a little bit and then think this is terrible and who am I and I can't do this and, right. You know, and I'd put it away for 6 months, but it kept coming back to me. And finally I was actually in India and a lady there, I was telling her about it and she said, you have to finish this. Like you just have to finish it. You know, and I went back and I finished it at that point. I was like, she's right. Like, this is like, somehow this is part of my soul's journey to write this script. And I have to finish it. And I'm not doing myself a service by, you know, losing confidence or being frightened. And after I finished it, you know, it is incredible. It was the first screenplay I wrote. And within a year, it was optioned.
That's insane.
You know?
That never happens. It's such a, like, that's a lottery ticket.
I know.
Well, you have a lot of lottery tickets in your life, but we'll get to those in a minute.
I know, but it was one of those things. Like it was crazy. Like from when I finished that script, you know, like I was living in Barcelona, and it was a movie that needed to be set up in America. It all took place in LA, and I found out that Mickey Rourke was coming to Cannes for Sin City, so it was 2005. Okay, and I drove up there. You know, I hired a car. I didn't own a car. I hired a car, drove to Cannes with my script going, I'm going to find Mickey Rourke. And I didn't.
You're a mad woman. You're a mad woman. I love it.
I know. And I didn't actually meet Mickey at Cannes, but I did meet a producer who then like emailed me maybe a couple months after Cannes and said, I just had dinner with another producer who's working with Mickey, and can I show him this? You know, would you mind being in touch? He loved the idea of your movie. And you know, literally 6 months later, I was sitting in LA having lunch with Mickey Rourke.
Oh my God. How was that lunch? What was that lunch like?
It was so surreal because like because I'd been working on that script for at that point, like nearly 4 years. Right. And I'd watched all of Mickey Rourke's movies and really dug into who he was. And he was my character. You know, he's in my movie. Right. Sure. You know, and so actually sitting with him was completely surreal because it's like, oh my God, this is like, he's a person. He's not just my character. And then he was with it, like, but he was like my character. He had his 2 chihuahuas with him, right? You know, and he talked about himself always in the third part, like, you know, because he talked about his character. So he's like, you know, I don't think Mickey should do this. Like, I think Mickey should be, you know, and it was just like completely surreal. Cause I'm just sitting there going, this is insane, you know. Right. You know, he's a real person, but he's like, it was, you know, he was more even bigger and stranger than I made it out in the movie.
Right.
I think that was the shock. Like he was, he's a big character. He's really eccentric character, and he was like more eccentric than I expected. And it was funny because I had made like one of the things I was really at pains to do in that script, because obviously it was set during a time that Mickey Rourke wasn't really working.
Right. Yeah, it was before the wrestler.
And I made it about his boxing. And I turned, like, the original script, he was quite a noble character. It was like he had given up acting to be a boxer because he thought acting was kind of like for wimps, and that boxing was real, and it was, and it was for real guys and all this kind of stuff. And I made him quite noble, but he didn't want any boxing in the movie. He just wanted it to be about Mickey has quit acting to hang out in strip clubs and get drunk.
All right, then.
Weird. Yeah.
The movie never got made, or did it get made?
It never got made. Oh, are you kidding? That movie would have been amazing. What ended up happening, so, it was funny. It brought me to LA. I mean, it was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience as long as it lasted. I got paid to rewrite it. WGA minimum. It's like so I made decent money out of it.
So you're like a working writer at that point.
Yes, exactly. That's what turned me into a working writer. Absolutely. And I learned so much through the process of it. And then eventually, it was like just before that writer's strike. Was that like 2008?
2007, something like
2006 or 7. So the company who had it, they wanted to like lock it all down because they wanted to shoot it. They wanted to have it ready to go if the writer's strike happened or not. And just at that moment, Mickey got cast in The Wrestler. And, and these are these weird things that are completely outside of your control. And I can remember the conversation. Mickey Rourke actually called me up personally, because we, over this time, developed, a friendship, like we talked a lot and worked on the script, a few different versions. And I can remember exactly the time where he called me up and he said, listen, I've got this movie and I'm going to go do that, and I don't think your movie's going to happen. I don't think I can do it. And, when I saw The Wrestler, I saw it, probably less than a year, like a year later or something, at a screening, and he was at the screening. And I spoke to him afterwards. And, it was that thing, like, watching that movie was so emotional for me because I went, oh, it's so beautiful. And
it's a wonderful film. I love that movie. And
also, though, it was, like, in its essence, it was the same as my movie, right? Because it was the resurrection of Mickey, And that, like, there's one speech in that movie which was so close to a speech in my film. It was just like, it was uncanny, where I was like, oh my God, it's the same film. It's different, but it's the same, because my film was about, this guy, like, finding his soul again.
Gotcha. And that kind of brought you to the world of screenwriting and.
So that's what, it's incredible that writing that screenplay changed my life totally. And
then how did you get involved with this young director who did a movie called Die Hard, was it? And Predator, and a couple other movies we might have heard of. How did you get involved with John McTiernan?
That was insane, because so after I had just arrived in LA with the movie about Mickey Rourke, I met Chris Byrne, this guy who is now my husband, and has been for nearly 12 years.
Yes. Side note, he was in Titanic. We'll move on.
He was in Titanic.
Yes. He's the one who drops the keys.
He was the guy, famously the guy who drops the keys. I married the guy who drops the keys.
Yes. And that's a whole, and all sorts of conversations about the making of that.
You could make this shit up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I wrote this movie about Mickey Rourke. I drove to Cannes, met a producer, flew out to L.A., met the guy who dropped the keys in Titanic and married him. I'm like, it's...
met him on the street. And he basically... So we'd only known each other for like a month or something, probably. He and Chris worked on Basic with John McTiernan. And he did military tech advice for that movie and also some stunts in it. And so he knew McT and was good friends with him. So he said to me, we'd only known each other, I'd say, for about a month. And he goes, oh, John's coming into town, and would you like to have dinner with us tomorrow night? And I was like, great, amazing. Like, I'm going to meet this director. This is amazing. So we went for dinner, and, John's quite a big, taciturn sort of guy, And I was like, but we got on, like, no problem. And then he said to me, so I hear you just optioned your first screenplay, and who did you option it to? And I said, to Peter Samuelson, and he nearly fell off his chair. I mean, I'll never forget like that sort of look. He was like, "What?" And he said, "I optioned my first screenplay to Peter Samuelson." Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, seriously.
So
come on.
It's so funny, right?
You can't write this.
And so I know. And so I was like, "Oh my God, that's crazy." And we talked about that. And so then like 2 days later, he calls us up. Chris and I, I'm saying we'd only known each other for about a month, but we were already like in love. Mm-hmm. It was one of those. We went from 0 to 100 in like a week, kind of thing. And so it was a couple of days after that John called up and he said, "I'm at Santa Monica Airport. I'm about to fly back to my ranch in Wyoming. Do you guys want to come?" Right? And and so it was like, yeah, okay, like, let's go. Okay, can you get here as soon as possible, And so
that's so Hollywood. It's like, listen, I mean, I'm flying back. Would you come, like, now? I need you now.
I know. Like, we're there, So Chris and I quickly throw some things in a bag, and we go to Santa Monica Airport. Chris had already been to McTee's ranch. He was like, "You're going to love it. It's amazing." And so we fly on his little private jet out to Wyoming.
Sure.
I'd never been on one of those little planes. It was amazing. I mean,
you've seen them in the movies, but you've never been in them, right?
Yeah.
Me neither.
Private jet. I was like, holy shit. And flying out of Santa Monica Airport. I mean, like, what? So we flew there and we went to the ranch. And then when we were in the ranch, basically every day McTee would give me a different script to read. And at night, so in the mornings, I was like, read this, And in the evening or something, I'd go off horse riding or, go for a big hike or whatever, and then come back and I'd see him later and he'd say, "Well, what did you think of that?" And we'd sort of go into his office room and sit and discuss the script, And I was just like, I thought this is just like, this is so cool. I'm just like in this, like, I'm on a ranch and
you have no idea what's going on.
This is just like cool,
right,
and like hanging out with him. Like, we just clicked, and I was, and I was completely honest with him, because I didn't really feel like I had anything. I wasn't angling for a job. I wasn't, I wasn't in that headspace. I was just sort of like, wow, this is amazing getting to hang out with somebody who's an amazing storyteller, an amazing maker of cinema. And, and I'm just getting the chance to chat to him about these scripts. And I would just say what I thought about the script, just say, like, I thought it was terrible, And he'd go, "Well, why?" And, and I'd just say, like, these are the reasons. And we'd get into it, And so that went on all week. And then we came back to LA and it was like, back for a couple of days. And suddenly there's a phone call saying, "Can you come out to work on a script?" And again, it was the exact same Hollywood thing. Like, what was funny about that was I was about to go back to Barcelona where I'd lived before.
Because you're like, I'm tired of this LA thing. It's not working out.
Well, I needed to go to like clean, like empty my apartment, pick things up, like close my life there. Like, I was realizing, like, I'm not going back there right now. Like, I'm staying in LA. So, but I was like, I need to go back there. And it was kind of an emotional journey, And suddenly McTee calls me up and he's like, "Well, can you come and work on this script?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I go, "When?" And he's like, "Well, could you come tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm about to go back to Barcelona. Could I come after that?" And he's like, "Well, why do you have to go to I remember him going, he said, "Why do you have to go to Barcelona?" And I said, "I have to go because I'm like moving all my stuff out of my apartment." And he goes, "Don't worry, we'll send men." Right? It's that
tone. We live in a completely different magical world than the rest of us do.
Yeah.
It's like Mount Olympus. It's like Mount Olympus. Absolutely.
It's so funny, right? Because it's just like, I mean, I'm like, oh, this isn't like sort of like you send men. I mean, this is literally me going into like with a couple of suitcases to sort of, do you know what I mean? I don't know. It was so bizarre.
Right.
But I did just go, okay. And it's that thing, I was like, no, okay. Barcelona can wait. This is more important. This is like an amazing opportunity.
Sure.
And so I went out to the ranch. I said, okay, fine. I can put that on hold. You're right. Like, why does this need to happen now?
And then you started writing with them.
Yeah. And then he was rewriting this script. It was called Deadly Exchange. It was the worst script. I hated it. Uh-huh. Like, out of all the scripts he'd given me to read the week before, it was the one that I was just like, it's just horrible, Politically, it was horrible. It was, it was about like an exchange student coming to America to do a terrorist act.
Beautiful, fantastic, yeah.
Yes, like really nice politics, like where sort of like foreigners are these like scary.
Well, but he comes from a different time too. You know,
yes. Well, what was funny though? What was amazing? So we got that, and I thought, well, I don't really even know what it means to rewrite a script.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like bear in mind, I've written one screenplay, right? You know,
and rewritten that one screenplay that you wrote originally.
Yes, I'd rewritten that, but I had no idea like what is going to happen here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just go, and we had agreed a rate. I think I was paid on a weekly actually to work on it. And you know, and he like we sat down at the beginning, and I was like, okay, we're just going to like jiggle some dialogues, or you know, what's going to happen. But he wanted to start from the ground up. I mean, we started from the start of the screen. I mean, we just rewrote it from the ground up. I mean, the only thing that remained was the concept. And actually, like politically, I mean, you know, he went there with it. Like he wanted to turn it into a Frankenstein story. And it became so interesting to me, where it's like this, you know, it was still about an exchange student coming to America to do this terrorist act, but he was we turned him into a kind of sympathetic character. His parents had been killed by Americans overseas, and he was coming back to actually get revenge on the CIA operative specifically, who was responsible for his parents' death. You know, and we imbued that character with like a great deal of innocence and charm, and of a certain kind. Like he was a monster, but he had been made a monster. You know, Frankenstein. Right. You know, it was his fault that he was a monster, you know? And like, I loved the script that we wrote, you know, it was an amazing experience. The way we would write, we would get together in the morning and figure out the next few scenes, you know, and like flesh out maybe 5 scenes or something. And then we would divide them up. He would say, okay, well, you write those ones and I'll write these ones. And he typically would give me the ones that were more like character dialogue-y scenes, and he would take the action scenes. And then we would go back to the ranch, and I would go to my little house on the ranch, and he would go to his big house on the ranch. And then he would write, you know, he would write his pages and I'd write mine, and then he would send me his pages and I would collate them, you know. And this went on until we got to like 70 pages, and he still hadn't actually read anything that I had written.
It was all based on feeling, on gut.
Yeah, like he still had not read a single thing. And then when we got to about 70, you know, we sort of got a little bit stuck with the story. And he was like, you know what, I think it's time to read back everything we've done so far. So could you print it up and give it to me? And I was like, okay. So I went and printed it. And I was kind of like, I mean, I remember like the feeling. I gave it to him and he said, okay, I'll see you later. And I just sort of walked out and I thought, okay, well, that's probably the end of it. Like he's going to, like, because I was so nervous about him reading what I had written. And I thought, this is the point at which he'll just be like, you know,
I've wasted all this time and money.
Get me an experienced writer. What am I doing with her?
Right,
you know?
right.
You know, like I was so nervous. I was shitting myself. And like, you know, I'd been really working hard, like on my pages that I was writing, like all the time I was like trying to copy his style, you know, right.
He's a brilliant writer. He's a brilliant writer.
Yeah, and like, you know, it was just like, it was such a strange thing. And so he went off and read it. I was so nervous, and I really thought, well, that's it. I should probably pack my bags now, you know.
Right.
But then he came back, and it was the sweetest thing, because I would never forget. He said, he looked like surprised, you know. He was like, you can actually write. And I was like, what? And he goes, I'm going to let you write more of this from now on, you know. And I was like, oh my God, you know.
That's
like,
so awesome.
One of the best moments of my life, probably, you know.
So you're on.
Amazing.
So you're on a ranch working with this A-list director, all this kind of stuff, and then you start writing a little movie. And I'm sure there's other things that happened before then, but you start writing this little movie called OBSELIDIA, and this is where our paths crossed.
Yes.
So many years ago in 2010 or 9. 9, I think.
It would be 2009, because it was in Sundance in
2010, right? So we started making. You made this amazing movie. I think you found me on Mandy, or I found you on Mandy.com.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was like it wasn't Craigslist. I think it was
Mandy.
Mandy.
It would be Matt. Matt probably did it. My producer.
Right. He put an ad out like, we need a colorist.
Yeah, and then I think he spoke to you and was like, "Yeah, you should speak to this guy. This is the guy."
Well, I mean, and I was working in my apartment or my townhome in Toluca Lake, and I had like the little upstairs bedroom with the color suite
you had Yoda.
I always have Yoda. always
you had Yoda.
Yoda's been with me since home. Yoda's been with me since '99. He's actually, I've known him longer than my wife. So And so you come up and you show me this beautiful movie called OBSELIDIA, and you said, look, we don't have a lot of money. Do you mind? Can you color it? And I said, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I fell in love with you. I fell in love with Chris. And I fell in love with the movie. Just why I was like, whatever you need. And that was the fastest color I've ever done. It was I think we knocked the whole color out in a day and a half. And I think another half day just to watch it. It was because there was like only 700 cuts in it.
I think there was less, actually. There's a lot less. I think there's like 253 cuts.
Okay, so you're right. So I knew it was a really low number because it was just like these long, beautiful, like just did not move shots. So
because I remember you saying, like, you were like, I've literally colored music videos with more cuts than this.
Exactly. I have. There's no question about it. It's absolutely true. True statement. And we were able to do it. And I remember we were rushing to get it to Sundance. And because, of course, all of us have to submit to Sundance. It is part of our journey. Yes. And I think it was the last day, like 5:45, the office closed at 6, and Chris dropped off the DVD.
Yep, he went in this motor scooter.
And you guys knew no one at Sundance.
Correct.
There was no stars in the movie, and you got in.
Yeah.
You got into Sundance.
Yeah.
And not only did you get in, but you won 2 awards.
Correct. I know.
What is that about? How was that experience?
I know.
Because you invited me to Sundance that year, and I was just too busy working on those damn music videos. Because I would have killed, like, going back, I'm like, that's one of the decisions I regret, not going through that experience with you.
Yeah.
Because you brought the whole team with you.
Everybody came. I think you were one of the only people who worked on the movie who wasn't there. Like, literally everybody came.
But I actually watched the live stream of the award ceremony. I did watch the award ceremony. I'm like, it's on. Oh my God, they won. It was like the Oscars for me. I was so excited.
I know. It was amazing. I mean, it was so unexpected to win awards as well. Like,
just to get in, let alone to win. Won.
I mean, to get in was already insane. You know, right. I mean, that was, that's one of those things that, like, I don't know. You know, in life, sometimes you'll get into a headspace where you think, you know, I'm just one of those people. It's like I'm never gonna get the lucky break. Right? Do you know what I mean? I think we can all go there, right?
All of us.
I'm one of those people. I'm just gonna slog away, and
grind it.
I'm never gonna get a lucky break, you know. And it's okay, and I'll make my own luck, and I won't be miserable about it. But I'll never, like, no one else will ever give me that. You know what I mean? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I can get in that headspace, and I literally. I mean, the night before I got news that we had gotten Sundance, I had gone into that kind of headspace. And I don't get dark very often, but I had like a dark night, weirdly, the night before I got the news. And I was really like, I felt really depressed. I felt like, and I was actually out on the ranch. I was in Wyoming, which might have been part of it because the ranch can be amazing. But also, like, when you're on a ranch like that, for me, about 4 weeks was always enough. Like, then I would have to get back to the city for a while because it's just like
desolate.
You know, I start to go a little crazy, you know. And I think I'd been there for 4 or 5 weeks at that point, and I was just like, ugh. And then compounded to that, there was this feeling suddenly with OBSELIDIA that, like, I just thought, I've made this movie and it's never going to be seen anywhere, and I have screwed it up.
And it cost $100,000.
And I had this one chance to make a movie, and I've screwed it up. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I'm never going to get this chance again. That's like really where I was, and I never got like that. But for some reason, I had this one night where I really felt that. And then the next day, and it was that weird thing, the very next day I got that message, an email from them first saying, you know, is this the right number to call you?
Which is always a good sign. Because they don't call you.
But I immediately called Chris and was like, and said, you know, I got this email from Sundance, and, you know, what do you think? I mean, and I'm like, they must just be like going to call me to say thanks and, well, you know, like keep trying, you know, like
they don't do that. There's 10,000 substances.
But you just sort of like, I couldn't even go there. Do you know?
You couldn't wrap your head around the concept that I got into Sundance.
Yeah, like it just seemed so far fetched, you know. And then when I got the call, and it was a programmer called Shari Freelo who actually called me, you know, and almost immediately said, your film's been selected. And I just started crying. I was like bawling. I was lying on the floor, you know, just couldn't believe it, I still think like, and it's funny because it's coming up for that time of year when people will be getting those calls,
It's coming up in November. Yeah, they do it right before Thanksgiving.
They do it right before Thanksgiving.
I'm waiting for my call.
Yeah. And it's like, I just know, like, there's all these people. But, it's funny, too, because I've been thinking a lot recently about failure and success, and the path that we're on. And I go, within failure, there is success, and within success, there's failure. It's like the yin-yang thing, And even like, you think getting in Sundance, that's it, like it's just, and it's a huge success. It's a great thing. There's no doubt about it. But still, like, it's not done and dusted, and it can still be very tough in there, like for me, the experience of going to Sundance with the film, and it was a journey, but the very beginning of it wasn't easy. Like having the film on that kind of platform, was actually, because suddenly you realize, okay, we've made it here, but just because your film movie gets into Sundance doesn't mean like everyone's going to love it, right?
Right.
Doesn't mean it's going to sell for a lot of money. Doesn't mean you're going to get good reviews. Doesn't mean anything, right? It means it's on a platform at which people are going to judge it at a very high level, which is like
terrifying,
because everybody's like, and they're sharpening their knives, right? Like, impress me. If they love it, great, But if they're like, that's a piece of shit, I would have made a better movie. And half the people in the audience are filmmakers. Like, I have to say, the questions that I got at Sundance, like after the movie, I always found them like quite, because it was always like the very first question after the premiere was, how much did it cost to make your movie?
And what did you shoot on?
In my head, I was like, really? Like, you've just watched about this movie and been on this journey, and that's the question you want to ask,
Sure. Yeah,
it's intense. It's an intense experience. It's amazing. Like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, great thing, and it's huge, But I would, I also go, it's interesting. Like, I go, it's not the be all and end all necessarily, and they're like, for certain films there could be better paths,
right?
Like, because that is a very noisy, high pressure path for a film. And
for a filmmaker.
A little film like ours, it was like, I won't underestimate. It was amazing for that film, and it
it launched
but it's like, it's still intense. I still just go like, it's intense. You feel like you're suddenly in this popularity contest that you never chose to be a part of. Which is kind of weird.
And it's
because
something
there's
that
all
they
the movies at Sundance that everybody loves. There's the darlings, and then there's the films that are kind of like,
and that's something that they don't talk about a lot when people are like, oh, you won Sundance, or you got into Sundance, or this or that. It's not all what it's cracked up to be. It's not like you started. No. Did they just come with buckets of money for you? Like, all of a sudden, to just your streets were paved with gold?
No, I remember speaking to one filmmaker before I went, like after my film had got in, and I spoke to him for some advice, and now he'd had a film there that didn't sell,
right,
and that never got a good distribution deal. And bear in mind, again, this is like, so his film was probably like in 2007 or something, and by at that time, DIY distribution, meant like, I don't know, selling DVDs from your
back in the car, yeah, sure,
right? Like, it wasn't like sort of like a valid choice. And his film was like, I loved his movie, but it never got any legs. It never made any sort of splash, although it had premiered at Sundance. And I asked my friend, like, what happened? Like, and what advice would you give? And he said, the thing is, he felt like his film, if it doesn't sell, like, all the buyers know, like, either it sparks an immediate interest in the first night, and if it doesn't, they all know. Right? And if it doesn't sell by the end of Sundance, he said, I felt like our film had a scarlet letter on it. Like, and it's really interesting, like I think, because I think that is true, and I think that does happen. Like, everybody, so all the buyers are interested until they're not, and when they all know it hasn't been picked up, then they know, it's like, not a hot ticket. It's, And
yours wasn't a hot ticket, if I remember correctly.
No, ours definitely wasn't. I mean, ours, like, I don't think ours was a hot ticket. It didn't have there's nothing about it that's an easy sell for a distributor. Right. And something that I've learned over the years is what distributors look for is an easy sell, right? And an easy sell is something that they've done.
Fruit.
Right? So it's like, either it's got cast that they know how to sell, or it's it's got that's
Concept,
number one probably,
genre,
or concept, genre. And if it's a film like my film that like not only is it a drama with no stars, like a drama with no stars, it's just a hard sell.
Yeah, no question. Sundance or no Sundance.
Absolutely, it doesn't matter what, and if it's not something that they know, and it's not that people don't like it, like tons of people come and distributors too, and they say, oh, I love your movie, but they have no idea how they would sell it, and so they're not going to touch it, and so the offers that we got at Sundance, were absolutely like minuscule.
So then what was your experience finally getting the movie out there and distributing it?
The experience was, I would say, not great, really. Like we didn't have a plan. Mm-hmm. So our basic thing, like I am not that producer, and on that film we didn't have that producer. Like it's funny, like I have never taken a producer's credit on any of my films, although ostensibly I could have on 2 of them, because I did a lot of producing work. I raised the money, I make it happen. But I know as a person, that's why I don't take a producer's credit. I'm not a producer. That's not who I am. It's not my passion. It's not my skill set. Mm-hmm. When it comes to distribution, that is just so not me, mm-hmm. And so with OBSELIDIA, we ran into that tough problem that we didn't have that producer. That person was not there. And you reach a certain point with it where you're like, okay, the only person that's going to make this happen is me, because no one else is going to do it.
Right.
So you do it because you have to. And with that film, we got lucky in the sense that after it had been on the sort of festival circuit for a year, and it played a lot of festivals, and it played very well, and and that was wonderful. It was a great experience, because I got to go to places all around the world, and mm-hmm. With that movie, and really have an extraordinary experience with it. And by that point, by our measure, it had already been a huge success, the film, compared to what we had expected for it. It had already like outplayed, by miles. And at that point, we got lucky that Sundance started their artist services. And so they helped us with the release just in terms of, and it was really just streaming and DVDs, mm-hmm. And so it's available on, it's available on Netflix, and no, it was available on Netflix. It's not on Netflix anymore. A Netflix license is for a year or 2 years or something. Mm-hmm. But it's available on Amazon and iTunes and Vimeo and all those places. But, it never got the release that I think it probably deserved. But that happens to a lot of movies.
Most movies it doesn't.
Tons of movies. Like, I mean, there's a mixed bag. Obviously, some movies probably don't necessarily deserve a wider audience, or there's not really a wider audience for them. Like there's those films. And then there's a film like, I feel like OBSELIDIA hasn't reached its full audience. Like, I think there's still a lot of people out there who would absolutely love that movie who just don't know it exists,
And there's just so much competition, so much content out there. It's difficult to cut through. And even for a Sundance winner, you won the Alfred P. Sloan, the only cash award, and you won Best Cinematography.
Yeah.
And me as the colorist, I take a little bit of credit, not too much.
I know, and which I just always feel super proud of, because and I always use this as an example to people. I go it just goes to show we were no doubt the lowest budget movie in our category, and people, which was U.S. dramatic feature, mm-hmm. So you go people always think that if you're a low budget movie, it's gonna look shit, and I go.
Gorgeous.
Yes, there's absolutely no reason you can make a film for such a small amount that can look amazing and win Best Cinematography.
Yeah, your DP was it Zach? His name was Zach?
It was Zach Mulligan.
Yeah, he was great. And you used the red camera when it was first coming out. Right. And I had a ball coloring it. It was wonderful. It's still one of my favorite things I've ever done as a post professional. So thank you again for including me on your journey in a little part that I added.
Yeah, I know, and I love working with you. It was so fun. So
let's talk about your new book, Shooting from the Heart. Now, I remember right before you left, because now you live in Colorado, when you were still here in LA, I remember going to visit you before you left, and you were in the middle of doing one of your workshops, which is kind of the genesis of this book, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Absolutely.
And it was a wonderful, and I kind of glanced through, because you brought me in to talk about post, and I was kind of glancing through the thesaurus and kind of the book that you were handing out to the students, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I was like, this is really well put together. So talk to us about the book and the genesis of it and what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, so basically, after making my second movie, and so I made my first film, it went into Sundance, amazing, Then I got into a conventional headspace, about how to do things, and spent 5 years not making a movie, because
that's what you do.
That's, because you get into this conventional space where it was like, I had another little script that I just wanted to make, and my new manager and agent were like, no, you need to do something bigger,
agents and managers.
Yeah.
Are they still with you?
My manager is actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I love him. So,
okay.
I don't know, but he's not always right.
Of course.
I think he knows that, and I'm not always right, but he's great. I love him. But it was kind of fascinating. So I just got into this conventional headspace, spent 5 years not making a film, then made one, and it wasn't a great experience. And it was that thing, like, before I even made it, and this is a film called Bleeding Heart, not my title. That says everything about the experience.
Yes. I saw the poster for it on. I was actually scanning through iTunes, and I saw it pop up, and I saw Jessica Biel with the gun and everything. I'm like, that is so not a Diane movie.
I know.
But that's a whole other conversation. I mean, we've talked off air about that experience, and
it was,
it was brutal.
yeah,
it was brutal.
But that's what brought me to wanting to teach workshops, because I think, like, after that, I went through a brief period where, I felt like sort of creatively depressed and about filmmaking. I was like, do I even want to do this? Like, again, I used to be a yoga teacher in Barcelona. Maybe I'll just go back to Barcelona and teach yoga. I love that. I was so happy, like, and just write screenplays because I want to and have fun, like, life's too short, if you're not loving it,
what's the point?
There's no point.
Amen.
And so, so I really was in that space. And then I thought back, though, to how I made OBSELIDIA, and I was like, that was amazing. And I thought, wait a second, this is kind of weird, because I thought most people who aspire to make films would look at what I've done and think OBSELIDIA is like the sort of training film, and it's not, and it's the stepping stone to the bigger, better film. Right? Because the second film is a bigger budget, and it's movie stars, and it's this and that, and all this kind of stuff. Right? And I thought, God, that's just like a lie that we're sort of sold, that somehow that experience is like, the bigger the budget, the more of a film. It's like, it's the same process. Like, my second film might have had more than 10 times the budget, but can I say I got 1 extra day of shooting. Like, you'll understand.
Better craft services too, I'm imagining. Better craft services.
1 extra day.
Yeah, right.
And you sort of go like, and actually the whole process is the same. Like, all I want is time with my actors. Like, that's what I care about as a filmmaker, ultimately. You know what I mean? And I go, like, having a bigger budget, it just means everyone gets paid more,
which is nice,
good.
Which is
I
great.
want everyone to be paid more, but it doesn't actually equate, like, more of a film, a different experience making your film, more like it. I always go, like, OBSELIDIA, the film that it is, we could have had $1 million and it would really look the same.
Yeah, that money would have been wasted.
Like, on the screen, it wouldn't be that different. It's, like, totally fascinating to me. And so once I sort of, like, I was having all these, like, thoughts about this, and I thought, I really want to share it. And I think part of who I am is sort of like, I do things that I think are impossible, and then I do want to share them and show to other people, this is not impossible. You can do this too. And that's why I became a yoga teacher, because I was like the least flexible person ever. I was the least likely yogi ever, And then when I started to do yoga, it changed my life. And within 6 months, I could do the splits, right? And it's like, what? And it changed, like, it blew my mind, because I went, oh, all these stories that I've told myself that I'm not flexible, that I can't do this, that I can't do that, they're just stories, And this is kind of like my obsession in life, I realize, like, the sort of through current, the through line between these seemingly different things that I do. I would go, it's like, you can do anything. And so when I sort of had this epiphany for myself about the films, I was like, I need to teach people, I need to share this with people who want to make films, so that they can make better films from day one, so that they can really understand, like, what it takes to make a successful indie film. And they can set up a situation where they can do it again and again. Because one of my big things is, you can't make your business plan or your career plan like winning the lottery.
Yes. Yes.
Like, even though we would all like to win the Mega Millions, and we've all bought our tickets.
You mean the 1.6 billion that's available now as of this recording? That's ridiculous. That's so ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. But schmoes like you and me don't win. But anyway, we've got to grind it out, my dear. But hey, we'll take a shot. Why not?
We'll take a shot. You know, and it's like, there's no bad thing about having a lottery ticket. That's like making a movie. It's a lot of, you know, like you just don't know. But I just go like, I want to help people, you know, one, like realize if you want to make movies, make them. There's no excuse not to do it, right? Two, share the information and tools that I have used, like real life stuff that can help you do it successfully, you know, and just like there's no bullshit. There's no lies in what I share at those workshops or in the book. It's like totally just like step by step. Here's what you got to do. You know, the rest is noise, basically, you know? And three, do it in a way that sets you up for future success so that even if that movie doesn't knock it out of the park, you know, you'll be in a position where you can do it again. Because my thing is like it's crazy the pressure that we put on filmmakers that like the first film has to be this huge success. And we all love that story.
You mean Reservoir Dogs, El Mariachi, Clerks?
It's a lie.
Yeah, it's absolutely. You're preaching to the choir. I say that constantly.
I mean, you have to make movies to like get better at making movies. You know, that's the way it works. Like you can't think that you can just think about movies for 10 years and then make one and it's going to be like amazing, you know? Like that's 1 in a million people. And I go, what you want to do is just be really smart, knowledgeable, empowered, informed, so that the movie that you make is the best that you can make at that point in time. But that you've set up a situation whereby you will get to do it again no matter what, you know? And so even if it doesn't set the world on fire, you get to make another one and apply what you learn and grow as a filmmaker and as a human being and as an artist and keep doing it. And so that's like, you know, I started doing the workshops then because I just became kind of obsessed with sharing this and helping people and empowering them with like what you really need to know, you know, to make a successful movie. And I felt like there's a ton of information out there about sort of how to, you know, like the conventional way of making movies, like foreign sales and attaching talent and all this kind of stuff. And that's fine, but it's out of reach for most people starting out, you know. And then there's a lot of stuff about guerrilla filmmaking and like making films for nothing, you know, and that's, you know, that's totally cool. I go, there's this spot in between, which is what I did with OBSELIDIA, and it's a $150,000 movie. You know, it was under that, it was like 140. But, you know, around that kind of budget where I go, like, you can make a film which actually can, like, everybody gets paid. It's not like, you know, It's not a situation where nobody gets paid and you're having to pull in every favor on earth. It's a situation where you can hire people to do all the jobs. You don't have to do everything yourself. So if you're like me and you know absolutely nothing about the technology of filmmaking, you know, that doesn't matter, right? You have a vision, you can make it happen because you hire people who know that stuff, you know? And your film can be like absolutely, like we talked about OBSELIDIA, winning cinematography awards, you know, like it's $150,000, but you can like be punching way above. I mean, a movie for that now, it's great.
I mean, look, you were beating out $1 million, I mean, $10 million budget films.
And so I go like, you know, I just go, there's this kind of like sweet spot of like low budget where you have a shot at like having a breakout film, you know. And if you think of movies, there's a whole bunch of movies, like whether it's Blue Ruin or Tangerine or all the different kinds of films, you know, that are made for like between 100 and 400K, you know, that like really can play in a mainstream arena. They're not relegated to being sort of like low budget indies, even though that's what they are. But, you know, there's enough of a budget there that they're movies, you know,
they're real movies,
and they really have a shot at breaking out. And so that's what I, you know, so I started teaching those workshops. I loved it. It was great. And then it was just last year, I was pregnant and I was actually preparing for a workshop, teaching a workshop here in Denver. And I was just looking at the material, and it's what you said, like I had written up this whole workbook that I gave, this whole manual that I would give to everybody who came, that was like 100 pages. And I was suddenly like looking through that because I was preparing to do this workshop. And I went, this would be a great book, you know? I don't even know why
I've written it already. I don't know why I don't publish it.
I know. I can't even explain why it hadn't really crossed my mind before.
I hadn't clicked yet.
Not always the fastest, but I think things have their own time and things come to you at certain, you know, like for whatever reason that day. And it was fascinating because that day I said, this would make a great book. I went and looked on my bookshelf. I was like, who publishes film books? You know, this one, like Michael Weiss Productions came up, Save the Cat, you know.
Yeah, they're huge. They're huge. Yeah. Sure.
Shot by shot. And I was like, okay, like let's reach out to them. And within 2 weeks, I had a book deal for it. You know,
that's awesome.
I know,
That's
and
so
I'm thrilled.
awesome.
I'm just so happy for it to like. I don't already, you know. So it came out on October. It came out a couple weeks ago, and already I've had so many emails and messages from people that I don't know who are like, this book is so, you know, has really inspired me. I feel so empowered. Like, I'm just so excited to make my next film, you know? And
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
yes.
That's awesome. And that's the end of the day, what both you and I are trying to do is help filmmakers.
Yeah, absolutely. I just go, like, I want to help. I mean, I always have this thing, like, for so long, making films was cut off from so many people, you know? Like, you know, and still, like, to an extent it is, but, you know, but now there's no reason for it to be that way.
No.
You know, like, if you want to make a movie, whoever you are, wherever you are, you can do it. Exactly. Make a movie, you know? And there's nothing to stop you.
Not anymore. There's no excuses anymore. But I'm a fan of the book. I'm a fan of you, and I will definitely put links in the description. And of course, it's available on Amazon. And it's called Shooting from the Heart.
It's called Shoot from the Heart.
And do you have a copy handy?
I do. I'm sitting at my desk, so of course I do.
Okay. So show it to show everybody. There it is. Is that a picture of you?
It's actually not me.
Oh.
You know, it's funny because the publishers did the cover, and initially the first version of it, you could see the lady's face a bit, but I was like, but it's not me, and I feel weird, you know? And we sort of talked about, like, because people will assume it's me, and it's, you know, and I found it kind of weird because it wasn't. And so we talked about, like, me going out and doing a photo shoot and, like, replicating this picture that they had done. But I was like, 8 months pregnant.
So not so much for the book cover at that point.
I don't know that that's going to, like, really, you know.
Shooting from the heart while you're pregnant. How to direct the movie while pregnant. That's a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche.
Yeah. So we went with that picture. But I liked, you know, so we just cut off the face and stuff. I think it worked.
It works beautifully.
I mean, one of my things, you know, obviously as a woman, in case anyone noticed. Yeah.
What?
I feel like so. I feel so passionate. Like, you know, we obviously have this problem in our industry with not enough women directing films, and it's hideous to me that it's still, like, every year it's like 4% of studio films or something. I mean, really, you know, not even 20%. You know, it's like 4%, right? And you're like, okay, and you go like. Well, for me, like, I never even thought I could make a film for so many years. Like, it just never, like, as I said to you, I was a total cinephile, but it never crossed my mind. And I think part of that was, obviously, the only female filmmakers I knew then were, like, Jane Campion.
Penny Marshall.
And who?
Penny Marshall. She was another
Penny Marshall.
She was
Agnes
the biggest.
Varda.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but it was like, there was so few. I was, like, obviously more in the indie, like, I was, like, thinking more about, like, indie sort of. And, you know, and they seem like, oh, they had to be, like, super, I don't know, they seem so other, you know? And then the way that filmmaking is often taught is often quite macho, too, and guys probably don't realize it. But, you know, it's very sort of, like, it's not welcoming to women, you know? And so, like, I think, like, what, you know, like, you know, this is a very female, it's very feminine in a way, I think. Even though it's, like, black, there, you know, it's clearly a woman's hand holding the camera.
Sure.
And I just, you know, what's exciting to me is helping empower women that want to make films. And I'm excited for men to make films too, and it's not exclusive, and I'm not sort of, like, you know, cutting them out. But certainly my workshops, like, I've had more women and also people of color and trans and gay and people who have typically just been left out of that, you know, that equation, really. And that excites me because I just go, then that's kind of what I'm about. You know, I'm like, I want to help. I want to show young women, you can do this, you know, and people who've typically not felt like I'm entitled to a place at that table. You know, we always talk about women, like, the confidence gap. This is a common theme, you know, because obviously, like, people like Brett Ratner or Michael Bay just feel like, you know, they just walk into they walk into those meetings when they're like 25, like they own it, you know?
Sure.
and women feel like they have to earn it.
It's a whole conversation, and I'm glad to have it, and I'm glad that it's happening more and more. And I actually, every time I watch a Netflix show, I wait for the directors, and I am seeing more female directors.
It is, yes.
There is more. It's still way where it needs to be, but I see more Latino names. I see more people of color. I see more women. There is a shift happening, but it's like anything. Hollywood is a huge, giant tanker, not a speedboat. So to turn it, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while, but it's turning. It is turning. I do feel that
I think it is turning. I hope so.
I hope so too. And this book, look, like you're saying, look, there's millions of other books that are just, dude related. I don't see many of books like yours. So and again, it's not exclusive to females or women, but it has a different perspective. And there's not a lot of I don't remember reading a filmmaking book written by a woman. I don't remember that ever. So how can you not have a perspective of over 50% of the population?
Correct.
It makes no sense. Correct. So I'm so glad that this is out there.
I know, and so I feel like it is important, just to shift that and to make it seem more possible for younger women.
Absolutely.
But the book is not specifically for women, and tons of people have written to me about it so far. Guys, so it's all good.
Awesome. Now I want to ask you a few questions before we let you go. What is the biggest mistake filmmakers make on their very first feature film?
The biggest mistake that filmmakers make on their very first feature film. Oh gosh, there's a few.
Go for
it.
Go for it.
Okay, so, and it depends on the situation, but one of the mistakes that really breaks my heart is that they really put all their hopes into it in a certain sense, and they put all their money into it. They put everything into it.
It's Vegas. They gamble it all. They put it all. They just push all the chips in.
Correct.
And it's their first one.
Exactly. And then when it doesn't succeed in the way that they hoped, they've kind of they crash.
Of course.
Emotionally,
physically.
I have met filmmakers who've their mothers have remortgaged the house in order for them to do it. I know.
Don't do that.
And I'm just in pain because I just go, I know.
Don't do that.
And you're and so you put yourself in so much pressure, and you cannot afford to lose, but you're going to lose because that's the casino wins,
Well, it's the equivalent of literally taking all the money in your bank account, mortgaging your house, put it all in a bag, drive to Vegas. Yeah. You've never been in a casino before. Walk up to the roulette table and put it all on black.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, because you haven't even practiced.
Yeah.
Playing the game.
Exactly.
It's insane.
Exactly. Even if you've made shorts or whatever, it doesn't matter. And I just go that's a big epic mistake that just breaks my heart, because, I sort of think some of those filmmakers, if they had been smart, one, never use your own money. Okay.
Unless it's something small that you can
Unless it's something small. Unless it's money you can afford to lose.
Correct. So if you're a multimillionaire, it
causes you no stress, right?
Yes.
It causes you zero stress. If you write the check to make that movie, whether it's 10,000, 100,000, 1 million,
not a credit card. The
correct.
Check.
Yes, and
the cash.
if I never see this again, it's totally cool. That's how it should be if you are using your own money. Mm-hmm. And if you're using other people's money too, and I'm all about raising private equity. And my thing is, even with the private equity that you raise, when you're getting money from people for your movie, making sure that those people are on the same page. Mm-hmm. They are not investing in your movie to make a ton of money or return on investment. They are investing in your movie because they want to be part of the experience, or because they believe in the movie, or they believe in you, or there's something about it. That's what they're putting the money in for. It's not about making a lot of money. And also with those people, making sure that they're happy to lose it. Right. I'm always upfront. I'm realistically, 97% of independent movies don't make money.
How many? What's the percentage?
I think it's 97.
Oh, you're being generous. I think it's 99. But
oh, really?
I think it's horrible.
I think it's 97.
It's the worst investment you can make unless you are
so it's
really into it.
And so I go what you want to do as a first-time filmmaker is set up a situation in which you don't have masses of pressure on you, right, where you can experiment and be free, yes, where you're not worried about that stuff, right? Where you can just and if you fail, it's okay. right? It's okay, and it's not gonna crush you, so that you can just you'll get up and make another movie, and you'll just be like, okay, I learned a ton, because you do, and I'll do that again. I won't do that again, and hey, I'd really like to explore that, and and you learn all the lessons, and you get to make another one, and so I think the biggest mistake that I see is that people set themselves up so that they can't recover and make another one, and that's why most people don't make more than one movie.
If you're lucky,
most first-time filmmakers don't become second-time filmmakers. Most second-time filmmakers don't become third.
Absolutely. My favorite quote that I always tell people, I'm like, follow your dreams, but don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
it's like, please.
And that's the thing, empower yourself with the knowledge, the real knowledge, get that real tool so that you can make smart choices,
right?
So that you'll succeed in the long run. And it's not about one movie. That's what I was going. And that's that thing about not putting all your chips into one.
Right, it's not going to be Reservoir Dogs.
It's not about making one film. It's about having a career where you get to make them again and again.
Correct.
And grow and learn and become better and better.
That's what it took me 40 years to learn that lesson. When I finally decided to make my first feature film, I'm like, screw it, I don't care. I'm just going to make one.
Yeah.
And I did, and I was like, oh, okay. That boogeyman's gone now. I can keep making them now. And when you took that pressure off of that first feature, you didn't have that pressure in OBSELIDIA. You weren't expecting it to blow up to be.
I had zero pressure. And that's why it goes perfect, because the people who were investing in it seemed like they were just investing in it for the experience, as I said. They weren't expecting to make a ton of money, any of them. They loved the project.
Sure.
And it was just it's not a lot of money. I didn't feel like, oh my God, if this fails,
these people are going to go under.
Yeah. So I just, because I never thought that a ton of people would see the movie. I made the movie I wanted to make. I just I filled it with obscure, weird shit that I love,
And yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
And that's though when you're going to make good stuff, if you're worried about what other people think or the audience or all that stuff, it's you're probably not going to make such a good movie.
I agree with you 100%. I did it now with my second film, the one I shot at Sundance. It was wonderful. It was. I had no idea what was going to happen. We were just flowing with it, and if it didn't work, hey, it was only 4 days. It didn't work.
Exactly. Exactly.
But when
that's it, just the process, being process orientated rather than results oriented.
Correct.
And obviously we all want things to go well, but actually with films, you don't really control the results.
No.
How your movie lands in the world, how people respond to it, how it's really outside of your control. But what you do control is sort of your energy during the process. And just focusing on that and just making sure that you're making something you love.
Mm-hmm.
You're
the
gonna
most important thing.
If you make something you love, you have a shot.
Because that comes off the screen. You can tell that there's love there. You can tell that there's an authenticity there.
Absolutely.
Where if you're just trying to, I'm going to make a horror movie because that's where the money is, you can smell it. But if you make a horror movie because you've grown up loving it, and that is the genre you want to express yourself in.
And this is exactly the one that you always wanted to see. You're making the movie you want to see.
Exactly. And you can smell that.
It's essential.
Without question. All right, so what advice would you give a filmmaker wanting to break into the business today?
Okay, my advice constantly, and it's funny, this is the question that I get asked more than anything.
Sure.
Curiously, people write to me. I'm fascinated by it. What advice would you give me? I'm an aspiring filmmaker. My advice is make films.
What a shock.
Right? And it's so simple, right?
Make a movie.
I feel kind of like a bit stupid when I'm well, here's my advice: make films. You want to direct. Don't spend years doing something you don't want to do in order to do what you want to do. Right?
Do what you want to do.
So if you want to direct. Don't go on a mad detour, doing other things. If that's you're I want to make this film, make this film, make a film, If no one's hiring you, you create a project and hire yourself, do not wait, you could wait your whole life for permission to make movies, and, I don't know, but if you want to make movies, there's absolutely, at this day and age, there's no excuse and there's no reason not to do it. If I've done it, I'm anyone can do it. Mm-hmm. And don't make your excuses. I don't understand. First, I feel like I need to learn more about cinematography and cinematographers. First, I feel like I need to learn how to edit. First, I need to learn.
That's a lot of excuses.
you will get the people who know how to do those things. Like, you know, like just do it.
Absolutely.
You know, and you will make it happen. You'll figure everything out and learn tons, and it'll be amazing.
Okay.
That's it.
Can you tell me what book had the biggest impact on your life or career?
Oh, what book had the biggest impact on my life or career? There are so many books. You know, like
the first one that pops into your head.
Do you know the very first one that popped into my head? This will make you laugh.
Go for it.
This is true. Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking.
Is it really?
That just popped into my head like that when you were in, like, you know, because I think, so I was a smoker in my 20s, and I read that book when I was like 26. And I wanted to quit smoking, and I really felt like kind of powerless, you know, because I was addicted.
Sure.
And I tried to cut down. I thought, I'll cut down for a month and then I'll quit. And I couldn't do it, you know, and I felt like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And then I read this book, and I think like one of the reasons that it changed my life so much, it didn't just stop me from smoking, you know, and it did do that, right? Like I read it and it was like, hey, you just have to change the paradigm in your brain. Like, instead of thinking this is something you want to do and you're denying yourself this thing that you really want, you'll never win that battle. Once you just change the paradigm, you're like, I don't want to do it, right? Like you've changed. And, you know, so it kind of like, it made quitting smoking joyful. Like I loved it. And I was like so happy, you know, and I was immediately like a non-smoker.
That's awesome.
I think like I've applied it to so many other things in my life though over the years too. You know, it's like the paradigm, like your mindset is what creates your reality. You know, when you buy into the idea that it's going to be hard to do something, like if you're going, it's hard for me to quit smoking, it's so hard, right?
Well, then
it's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard.
Right?
It's going to be hard. Absolutely.
It's going to be painful. It's going to be tough. The minute you go, it's easy, right? It's easy. And this is everything. Like everything in life is like this. You know, if you're like, you know, if you want to make movies and you're going, it's really hard though, and you have to know this and you have to do this and you have to get that and you have to, you know, it's going to be hard. And you are going to need to know all these things. You're going to have to do all those things. But the minute you change that paradigm in your head and you just go, you know what? I can do this. You know, there's no reason for me not to do. Like, I can make a movie, you know, like, and I remember thinking that with OBSELIDIA, even though I didn't expect it, I was always like, the highest and best would be Sundance. I was very clear that Sundance was like, you know, the best, like the best, you know, idea for this movie. And I just go, like, once you realize you can change paradigms in your brain, you know, everything in life can be easy.
Yes, I agree with you 110%. It takes
But
time. But you know what? You don't learn that in your 20s, generally.
If you want to make it hard, you can make it hard, you know?
Right.
So that book, that is sprung to mind. But I mean, yes, of course.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
Probably the ones that I'm still learning.
Okay.
You know, they say like you are doomed to the same mistakes until you learn them.
Sure.
Right? It's like relationships or whatever.
Sure.
So a funny thing for me, and we touched on this briefly before about like the distribution of OBSELIDIA, for instance, you know, and I just made the same mistake with my third film. You know, I had two producers on board who I thought were going to cover it, but haven't, you know, and I just go, I should have, like.
Has it been released yet, or is it still?
This is a lesson that I should have learned, you know, and so I'm back in the situation with my third film, which is a beautiful film.
But has it been released yet?
It has played at a couple of festivals.
But it hasn't been distributed yet?
No. And it's not going to get like, you know, a big, it's really a film. At this point, I just want to, you know, get it out streaming. But it's that thing again. I've gone through the same thing, right? Where the producers just, you know, weren't up to that, you know, and it's kind of astonishing to me that I've made the mistake twice, you know, like once, okay.
Shame on me. Shame on them. Once, it's not second time. Shame on me.
Like, I've made that twice. You know, and I realize it's something for me to really like look at, like, you know, because obviously my next film, there's no way I can do this again, you know. So like
we'll have a conversation. I'll help you with the distribution.
So I need a good producer though too. Like for my next film, I need a producer who is obsessed
with
marketing distribution.
Okay, I'll talk to you after the interview.
Okay.
And
That's what I need.
And then of course the toughest question of all, 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Ooh, 3 of my favorite. Okay, this will always change. And every day that you would ask me this, I would have different answers. But number 1 is It's a Wonderful Life. Always.
Okay.
I freaking love that movie.
Sure,
and it just never gets old. And everything about it is perfect.
Okay.
And I think, like, I teach some screenwriting, and my students get totally tired of me talking about it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, next.
I love it. Okay, number 2 today would be Kieslowski's Blue.
Oh, I love Red. I love Red, but I do love Blue.
Blue has just been in my mind a lot recently. I don't know why. Yeah.
I love A Double Life of Veronique. Oh,
I know. And the Decalogue. I mean,
the Decalogue.
Maybe that's exactly. I saw a thing about the Decalogue the other day I think it was on sale for the Criterion Collection, and it got me thinking about the Decalogue. But
it was on sale. It was 50% off. It was 50% off.
Exactly.
It was a flash sale.
Blue is like a perfect movie to me.
It is great.
You know?
Great.
And then, okay, I'm just going to throw like I've never said this in any list of my favorite films, but the other day, this is like, I love these kind of movies that my kid was like about to watch a movie. Now I was like helping him choose one on Amazon, and I saw Edward Scissorhands, and I was like, you have to watch this.
Oh my God,
and I had no intention of watching a movie at that moment, right? Like I was trying to find him something to watch so that I could go and do some work. And then I put that on, and I was like, I just sat down, and I was like, what
a magical movie. I saw that in the theater. It was so magical. It was something out of left field. It's so
These
unique.
are like random movies that I would never, like, It's a Wonderful Life is always like my favorite movie, but the other 2 I would never normally say. But I have to say, like, I thought I am so fascinated. Like, it's actually an exercise that I encourage people to do is like, just write down 10 movies that you freaking love, right? That you would watch anytime. Like like Edward Scissorhands for me. Like I just love it.
Shawshank for me. I like Shawshank.
It's not I think I should like or whatever. It's actually though just a movie. The minute it comes on, I just have to sit down and watch it. You know? Like those movies really are like such great guides for us as filmmakers, because if you like, it's not what you think you should love or your official top 10
or what's
list.
cool or what's supposed to be.
Yes, but actually like that movie that you cannot resist watching if it's on, or what you would watch when nobody else is there too.
Yeah, like everybody will always say, like, oh, Citizen Kane. I'm like, look, nobody's sitting down watching Citizen Kane 1,000 times. It's just
like really. I mean,
it's not. Look,
you admire it.
I get it. It's kind of like sushi when you first try it. You're like, oh, okay, it's an acquired taste. I God bless Orson, and what he did was amazing.
No,
but
and he made it so much cinema language, but nobody loves it in that way. I just go like. Really pay attention to the movies you absolutely love that you might not even want to admit to liking to your cinephile friends, because those films can guide you, I think, But it was fascinating to me that Edward Scissorhands, because, I don't know, I just said, I was like, it's so beautiful, and it's so bold and brave and like
in the studio system. In the studio system that was made. It was made up in my neck of the woods in Orlando when I was around. Yeah, I wasn't in school, but I went to school in Orlando. But I remember like, oh, that's where they shot. It was all shot up in Orlando. It was in that area.
It's stunning. It's a stunning movie.
Now, where can people find you, your book, and your work?
So you can find me at my website, www.dianebell.com. And my book, from my website, you will find links to the book. You can find it on Amazon or at mwp.com, the publishers.
And don't you have, is it Rebel Heart?
Yeah, I'm sort of winding that down.
Okay.
So for a number of years, rebelheartfilm.com was my website, but I'm starting to trim it down. DianeBell.com. Simple.
Keep it simple.
And actually, because right now I'm creating an online course.
Nice.
From the book.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's kind of epic.
Nice. I can't wait.
I think right now the plan is to launch it early next year. So right now you can sign up to be on a sort of wait list on the website, and when there's news about it, you'll be the first to know. And I'm super excited. I mean, it's in depth. It's the book and then some.
Awesome.
Because it's really going into everything in depth.
Diane,
and it's It's like a whole film school.
Diane, it's been a pleasure. One of my biggest pleasures knowing you as a filmmaker and as a human being and as a person. And I so appreciate all the hard work you're doing out there helping filmmakers and just trying to make the world a little bit better than the way you left it.
That's all we can do.
That's all we can do.
All we can do.
Thank you so much for all your
Alex, I love
everything.
you so much, and thank you so much. It's always a pleasure for me chatting with you. I love it.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.